Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, verse number 34. Yatha prakashyati ekah kritsnam lokam imam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashyati bharata. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Purport. There are various theories regarding consciousness. Here in Bhagavad Gita, the example of the sun and the sunshine is given. As the sun is situated in one place but is illuminating the whole universe, so a small particle of spirit soul, although situated in the heart of this body, is illuminating the whole body by consciousness. Thus, consciousness is a proof of the presence of the soul, as sunshine or light is the proof of the presence of the sun. When the soul is present in the body, there is consciousness all over the body. And as soon as the soul has passed from the body, there is no more consciousness. This can be easily understood by any intelligent man. Therefore, consciousness is not a product of the combinations of matter. It is a symptom of the living entity. The consciousness of the living entity, although qualitatively one with the supreme consciousness, is not supreme because the consciousness of one particular body does not share that of another body. But the super soul, which is situated in all bodies as the friend of the individual soul, is conscious of all bodies. That is the difference between supreme consciousness and individual consciousness. Om Gyanathimmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmanitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. First of all, welcome to all of you for joining the Bhagavad Gita class. We are continuing with chapter number 13. Today we will conclude it. So we're going to do verse number 34 and 35. So in this verse number 34, Krishna is again talking about the difference between the body and the soul. Now, we have heard in chapter 2 itself, Srila Prabhupada explains the size of the soul. It is 1/10,000th of the tip of the hair. So you take the tip of the hair, cut a small piece, and then again cut that into thousands of pieces. That one tiny piece is the size of the soul. So obviously it is not visible to our material eyes. So here Krishna is trying to explain to Arjuna that how do we know that there is soul in the body? Only with the help of consciousness. That's the difference between a living body and a dead body. The moment the soul leaves the body is considered dead because there is no more consciousness. Now, very nice example, I would say analogy is given about the proof of the soul, which is a consciousness. Similarly, in the morning, we may see the sunshine, the sunlight, and just by seeing the sunlight, we know that the sun is present, right? Even though we may not be able to directly see the sun, obviously it's not possible to see directly the sun because it's so powerful. So similarly, Krishna is trying to explain that if a person can understand by looking at the sunshine that there is sun, similarly, one should understand that when there is consciousness in the body, one should understand that there is soul in that body, the spirit soul. Now, the sun is just in one place, but it is illuminating the entire universe. Similarly, Krishna is explaining that the soul is situated in the heart. We already learned this in the previous chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the place where the soul is situated. So we have the gross body that we can see, and then we have the subtle body. The subtle body includes mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the subtle body is situated in the heart along with the spirit soul and the super soul, which is the Paramatma. So here we can understand that just as the light is the proof of the sun, similarly, consciousness is the proof of the soul. Now, body cannot even move without the presence of the soul, as I explained, right? It is dead body. There was a scientist by the name Harry Monson, and from his research, he concluded that when the soul, of course he didn't know that soul leaves the body and that's why the body is dead, but he did research on the dead body and whatever chemicals are left in that body. He concluded that the value of that dead body was $5.60. Just imagine this body that we worship all our life, this body that we adore and we take such good care of, this body, it has value. It is, in other words, we can say it is invaluable, in the sense you can't put a value on it just because of the presence of the soul. The moment the soul leaves the body value is only $5.60. Only the intelligent people can understand the difference between the body and the soul. In chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, we saw that Krishna spoke about the soul about 22 verses in chapter 2, and he explains that Dehi no asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana muhyati. He says, as the embodied soul, which means the soul which is kind of stuck in the body, embodied soul continuously passes from boyhood to youth to old age. Similarly, the soul passes on to another body at the time of death. Then finally, Krishna says, Dhiras, a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. That means, who is a sober person? Someone who has knowledge, who understands, yes, the soul has left the body. The soul is eternal. Soul is never going to die. It is not born. It does not die. It is eternal because it's part of Krishna. It is just this body which is destroyed. So knowledge is very, very important. In fact, people feel that if we just read the Bhagavad Gita ourselves, we will understand it completely. No. In chapter 9, Krishna tells Arjuna it's the most confidential knowledge. It is Raja Vidya, king of education. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. Guhyam means it's a secret. So this Bhagavad Gita is actually a secret. You can call it, it's password protected. So only the intelligent can crack the password. Now, there's a nice story. There was this gentleman who reached the city, who went to a big city for the first time, and he had heard from his friends that, they have nice places for disco and bars, etc. And, only adults are allowed. So he knew the name of that bar. So he went there, but he saw that there was a long line, but there were bodyguards there, security guys over there, not bodyguards, but security guards over there, allowing people only if they knew the password to enter inside. That there was a secret password. So now this gentleman, he was new and he was thinking, how will I be able to find the password? And he was really desperate to go inside the bar. So there were two people in front of him. So the security guard told the first person in line, he said 12. And that person said 6. So the security guard said, good. He let him go inside. That means he cracked the password. Now, the second person in line, the security guard said 6. And second person in line said 3. He said, okay, you can go too. So this gentleman started thinking, it's pretty simple. 12, 6, 6, 3. He thought he got it. So when it was his turn, the security guard said 10. Obviously, he would say 5, but that was wrong. He was not allowed. Why? Because there was a secret behind the calculation of this password. 12 has 6 letters, so 12, 6. The word 6 has 3 letters, S-I-X, so 6, 3. Then when he asked 10, 10 has only 3 letters, T-E-N. So his password should have been 3, but he did not. So you see, Bhagavad Gita is much, 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 much more complicated. It is very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita on our own. If it was possible to understand just by reading, Krishna would have given a Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and said, please read the instructions that I have given in the Bhagavad Gita. No, he told Arjuna, Tachruno, he said, please hear from me. So to understand the Bhagavad Gita, one requires at least the basic faith. And that basic faith is that the Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is the Supreme Lord, because the Sanskrit shlokas, they start with Shri Bhagavana Uvacha, the Supreme Lord said. So once we have that basic faith, then we can continue our journey on spirituality. Then we can continue, not continue, but at least begin our journey to understand the Bhagavad Gita. There should be no blind faith. That is very, very important, because blind faith can be very dangerous. So here in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the soul, the spirit soul, is not matter, it's not made of material elements at all. It is a symptom of the living entity. That's important to understand. Why is it not matter? Because the spirit soul, that is we, our true identity as spirit soul, we are parts of Krishna. What does he say in Bhagavad Gita? Mamai Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. Mamai Amsha. Amsha means part. Krishna says all living entities are my parts, and that is why they are spiritual and they are eternal. So the living entity is conscious of only one's own body, just like we all are here online on Zoom. I am conscious of my body. I cannot be conscious of your bodies. That's not possible. But Krishna, he is conscious of all the bodies. So that's why our consciousness is called individual consciousness, and his consciousness, Krishna's consciousness, is called supreme consciousness. Let's go to verse number 35, the last verse of this chapter. What does Krishna say? Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the supreme goal. The purport. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in verses 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. See? So once we have the faith, like Rupa Goswami says, Adau Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya Anartha Nivritti. So once we have that little Shraddha, little faith, then what we should do uh, sadhu sangha, which means we should associate with saintly personalities, associate with those who have understood the Bhagavad Gita, associate with the devotees of the Lord who are already on the spiritual path. So what will happen when we associate with such spiritually inclined people? Then we will start doing bhajana kriya, which means then we will start putting Bhagavad Gita into practice. Then we will hear, we will chant, we will remember, we'll worship. So we will be able to follow the 9 processes of devotional service. Then when we do bhajana kriya, then the next step will be anartha nivriti. Anartha means unwanted. Unwanted things in our heart like lust, anger, pride, greed, all that will be removed from the heart. So that's why it's very important that a faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concept of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is a gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul, and there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. They are two individuals. They cannot be one. When people say, I'm God, you are God, everyone is God, that is not correct. There is the soul, that is us living entities, and then there is the supreme super soul. He's called the super soul. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the supreme soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose to the 13th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So you see, we can see here the process of the ultimate goal is given to us. So there is, just like in chapter 5, we have the peace formula, right? Bhoktaram yagna tapasam sarva lokam maheshwara suridam sarva bhutanam gnatva mam shantim richati. Shanti means peace. So that is the peace formula. And here Krishna has given the formula on how to reach the ultimate goal, which is the supreme destination, the spiritual world. That's where we belong. Right now in this material world, we are like fish out of the water. Our constitutional position is with the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. So, how can we understand the process to reach the ultimate goal? With the help of knowledge. It's very, very simple. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita 18 chapters, Krishna is explaining everything. First of all, he's explaining the 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. Who is God? Who are we, the spirit soul, karma, material nature, eternal time. And then he's talking about the whole yoga ladder, karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. So we can understand everything only with the help of knowledge. And that knowledge, it's important to get from a bona fide authority. Many times I have talked about this, that supposing I open a school in my backyard, no one is really going to come to that school because it's not connected to the board of education. It's not bona fide, right? Just like when we want to get some news of what's going on in the world, where do we go? We go to the bona fide authority like CNN or ABC or whatever channels there are, whatever it is, right? So, similarly, we need a bona fide guru who can teach us the Bhagavad Gita. And in chapter 4, verse 34 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains this. He says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. That Krishna tells Arjuna, excuse me, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The self realized soul can impart knowledge unto us because he has seen the truth. He is Tattvadarshina, right? Right from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, uh, from chapter 2 onwards, Krishna laid the foundation for the Bhagavad Gita. He made us understand we are not this body, we are spirit soul, and we have to understand from chapter 3 and 5 that karma plays a very important part. Every action has a reaction. So, based on our activities, what karma we do, whatever actions we perform, we will face reactions. So, we already learned in chapter 3 and 5 that we should perform activities according to the scriptures without having a desire to enjoy the fruits of our activities. Then we will not have any reactions. In chapter 3, Krishna says, Yagnarthat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandanaha. Tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. He gives the formula how to become free, how to become mukta, liberated. He says yagnartha, all the activities must be done as a sacrifice for the Lord. When we perform our activities in that consciousness, then there is no bandhana, there is no bondage, there is only freedom, there is no more bondage. So here, uh, this was the last verse of chapter 13. So I'll just give a summary of this chapter. So in this chapter 13, Krishna is teaching us again, once again, to understand the difference between the body and the soul, to understand that this body is the field of activities. That's what he calls it, a field of activities. And the knower of this field of activities, that means the knower of the body, is the spirit soul. And also, there is the super soul situated in the heart. And once we understand this Bhagavad Gita, then we will get liberated with the help of knowledge. It's very important to hear Bhagavad Gita, but more important is to follow it. There's no point in just hearing here. Yes, we do get some benefit by hearing, but then we need to put it into practice. Just like I want to start a business. Now, to start a business, I gain knowledge and I get all the information, and I have everything laid down step by step. First this, then that, and that, and that. And every day I just open my notes and I keep reading that. Oh, then I have to invest this much, and then I had to get the material from here, and this needs to be done, and that. And every day I just keep reading it. I just keep reading it. Is it going to take me anywhere? No. I have to put those steps into practice. I have to, like, if my first step is find an office space, then I have to act upon it. I have to make the effort to find an office space. That is how I will be able to start my business. So similarly with Bhagavad Gita, it's good to hear, but after hearing, we should try to put it into practice. Then Krishna says that we will be able to reach our ultimate goal. Of course, in this material world, when we meet people, when I meet people and I ask them, oh, what's your goal in life? many of them don't even know what's their goal, and they're like, I haven't really thought about it. That means they're just simply living. There is no goal in life. And then those who do have a goal, 99.9% of them, their goals are all material. That maybe I want a green card, or I want US citizenship, or I want a multi-million dollar home, or I want a Jaguar, or I want this, or I want to be a CEO. It's all everything to do with this material body. Very rarely Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, after many, many births. Gyanavan Mahaprapadite, one who is in knowledge will surrender unto Krishna. And what is the characteristic? Vasudevam Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. Mahatma means great soul is very rare, who understands Vasudev Krishna is all in all. He is the cause of all causes. So for us to reach, first of all, we need to decide, do I want to continue in this cycle of birth, disease, old age, death, then again another body, and then again another body, just keep going round and round in the cycle? If we are happy with it, Krishna cannot do anything about it. He said, Tathastu, that's what you want. But if we are, if we are intelligent enough and have understood that this place, material world, according to Bhagavad Gita, is Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, it is full of miseries and it is temporary. So when we understand that, then an intelligent person will think, oh, then why should I come back here? Let me go to a place where there is permanent happiness, and that is the spiritual world. So just like we have faith, as I was telling you, to get news, have faith in CNN. In fact, anything that we do in this material world, we need to have a teacher, and we need to have faith in that teacher. Until and unless we have that, we will not be able to progress any further. We have faith, let's say if I'm starting a business, I have a business partner, I need to have that basic faith. Otherwise, I won't be able to do business. And, anything that we want to learn, music, dancing, software programming, or whatever it is, we always need a teacher. So here Krishna is also, Prabhupada is also telling us in the purport that we must approach a spiritual master, a guru, so we can learn from them. Why bona fide? Because that bona fide person who's teaching has learned it from a bona fide spiritual master, who has learned it from his bona fide spiritual master, and the chain goes directly all the way to Krishna. So faith is very, very important. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says that yes, when we have basic faith, then we need to make it strong. And we can make it strong only when we associate with spiritually minded people, with devotees who have devoted their life to Krishna consciousness. Then, when we associate with them, we learn from them, we understand, we try to understand the Bhagavad Gita, because the realization, as they call it, self realization, understanding oneself, it doesn't come automatically. No, it's a process. We take in the knowledge, we contemplate on it, and then we put it into practice. So this is how theoretically we may understand, I'm not this body, I'm a spirit soul. But practically, it is difficult. It needs a lot of practice to understand. And that is why in Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Yoga is mentioned, devotional service, which is also called sadhana bhakti, where we try to put Bhagavad Gita into practice. And the very first step is chanting the holy names of the Lord. Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyatha. In Kalau, in Kali Yuga, there is no other way, no other way, no other way except chanting, chanting, chanting the holy names of the Supreme Lord. Then when we chant, the sound vibrations will from the ears will go directly into the heart, and purify the heart. Then we will be able to see our own selves as the spirit soul and not this body. So, spiritual realization can be achieved only when one endeavors very sincerely, follows the instructions. Why did Krishna speak the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? Is it that Arjuna was dumb, he was ignorant? No. Arjuna was a pure devotee of the Lord. But Krishna chose Arjuna to explain the Bhagavad Gita so that this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita can come to us, so that we can take benefit of this very, very ancient treasure house. You can call it a treasure house. It's the essence. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedic literatures, and it is only 700 verses. So once we understand Bhagavad Gita, we will be able to break this cycle of misery. The biggest problem that people generally face is the bodily concept, always thinking I am this body, right? As soon as we wake up, we want to look in the mirror, how beautiful we are. Then we start meditating on how to worship this body, how to decorate it, how to give it the best things, how to make it happy, how to enjoy the senses. So it's all that is a problem, that we are on the bodily concept of life. And so in the process, now we have forgotten who we really are, and we've forgotten that we have come in this material world many times. Brahmanda brahmate, brahmanda brahmite, that means in this whole Brahman, we have been traveling and traveling and traveling, and have not yet understood that this body is nothing but it is made of material elements, right? We have heard this, that at the time of death, the body goes to dust, right? All the material elements, they disintegrate. It gets mixed in the dust, in the dirt, or whatever you may call it. But when the body is destroyed at the time of death, the subtle body is not destroyed. Mind, intelligence, and false ego is not destroyed. These three things, the subtle body, the soul, and the super soul, they go on to the next body, until and unless we liberate ourselves and go to the spiritual world, where we leave behind our subtle body. Only the soul takes on a spiritual body and goes to the spiritual world. So we've already heard Krishna, many times saying, I am the super soul, I am the Paramatma situated in everyone's heart. In chapter 15, we will see verse 15. He says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sani bishto. I'm situated in everyone's heart. Mataha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. He says, from me comes remembrance, forgetfulness, and knowledge. Now we need to choose, what do we want? And based on our desire, our choice, Krishna will fulfill it. If we want his guidance, he is going to show us the way. But if we don't, then too bad, then he's not going to, because he's not going to interfere with our minute independence, whether we want to hear or we don't want to hear, whether we want to follow or we don't want to follow. So I'm going to conclude with what Krishna has explained so far in chapter 13. He basically answered Arjuna's questions, where Arjuna asked him, what is the field of activities? Krishna said, the body. He asked, who is the knower of the field of activities? Krishna said, it's the spirit soul. And he also explained that super soul himself also is the knower of, he's the knower of all the bodies. Then verses 8 through 12, he gave us the items of knowledge. What is knowledge? Then he talked about his universal form. We already saw the whole chapter number 11 is called the universal form, where it describes. But from that, we can understand that the universal form is spread everywhere. Krishna says, I'm the maintainer, I'm the sanctioner, I'm the enjoyer, I'm the overseer, I'm the master. And he is beyond material senses. He has nothing to do with material senses. So it's important to understand that the soul is eternal, we are never going to die. It's only the destruction of the body, just like this sari that I'm wearing. Once it, tears, I'm going to just throw it. I'm not going to cry over it because it's just covering the body. Similarly, body is what is covering the soul. So when the body is destroyed, a sober person is not bewildered. So Krishna is there in the heart to guide us. He is also the object of the knowledge. He is also the goal of knowledge. What is the purpose of understanding the Vedas? Krishna says, Vedes just servet aham eva vedayo. Vedanta krit veda vid eva chaham. He says, I am the compiler of the Vedas and I am to be known from the Vedas. The purpose of studying Vedas is to understand Krishna, but that is only possible through Bhakti Yoga. What does he say? He says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati. Only my devotees can understand me. So, to understand Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's instructions, we need the basic faith, we need guidance, and then we need to build that faith and make it very firm in association of devotees. We hear from them, we put it into practice, follow this process, and not just hear, but also put it into practice. So, we can see that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that we living entities, we are the cause of our sufferings and enjoyment. We cannot blame God that, oh, whenever there is a suffering, we say, oh God, why did you do this to me? He did this to us because we deserved it based on our actions, our karma. We are facing the reactions now. So the Supreme Lord has nothing to do with it. So we must understand that we are the cause of our sufferings and our enjoyments. And of course, once we know that, then we have to be careful on how we act. You need to do prescribed duty. Chapter 3, verse number 8, Krishna tells Arjuna, perform your prescribed duty. Now, one may say, what is my prescribed duty? Just like when we are diseased, we go to the doctor and the doctor gives a prescription. Similarly, for spiritual knowledge, we should approach a spiritual master who can give us a prescription. Okay, this is your situation. This is how your senses are working. This is your level of knowledge that you have. And this is the prescription for you, right? When we do that, then we will be able to break this cycle. Otherwise, we will be taking different bodies, birth after birth. There will be no end at all. So here Krishna has answered Arjuna's questions, told him about who you are, who I am. And when we are able to understand this, then Krishna says we are actually seeing. Actual seeing means with the help of knowledge, with the glasses of knowledge. That's called Gyanachakshu. Gyanachakshu means eyes of knowledge. When we see the whole material world with the eyes of Bhagavad Gita, we will get a completely different perspective. So Krishna finally, is telling Arjuna that you please take on this knowledge. You see with the eyes of knowledge, understand the difference between body and the soul, understand how karma works. Then once you understand that, then he says, finally, you will achieve the supreme goal. So as I was telling you that for, you know, for every disease, there is a different medication. For, for instance, for diabetes there is different prescription. For flu there is different prescription. For typhoid, or for jaundice, whatever it is, each one has its own prescription. So similarly, there is prescription for this age also. Right now the age in which we are is called Kali Yuga. So it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krite yadhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam yajatomake, Dwapare parichayam, Kalau tad hari kirtanam. So in Satya Yuga, Krite yadhyayato dhyan, meditation. In Satya Yuga, the process for understanding the Supreme Lord or becoming self-realized was meditation. People lived for 100,000 years in Satya Yuga. So they could easily meditate for 30, 40,000 years. And meditation will give effect only when one meditates for that many years. And that's not practical in Kali Yuga. Similarly, in Treta Yuga, it was fire sacrifice. People live for 10,000 years. In Dwapar Yuga, people live for 1,000 years. So the process for self realization was elaborate temple worship, deity worship. But here it is said Kalau means in Kali Yuga, Tad means you get the same benefit. What we get from Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, we get the same benefit in Kali Yuga just by Hari Kirtana, chanting the holy names of Lord Hari, that is Krishna. And when we chant, then we purify ourselves and we become eligible to go to the spiritual world. Now, this is how we conclude chapter 13 today. Next Wednesday, we will start a chapter 14, which is very interesting. It's the modes of material nature. So we will understand from Krishna how these modes work. The food that we eat, the knowledge, the destination, the actions, everything falls into these three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But finally, we will see Krishna telling Arjuna how to transcend these modes and come to the mode of pure goodness. So, this is how this chapter ends. I would like to know if any of you have any questions, if you want to ask, if you have any questions, just let me know.